All right. Welcome back to another great episode of Better Nurse Corp. It's your favorite color in the world, brown, low, of my co-host Ruse, and today we're talking about PTSD, but not just any PTSD. PTSD at work, PTSD experienced by healthcare workers. So I want to start off by giving a definition about PTSD, and then we'll just go into our regular scheduled program. So PTSD is a mental health condition that can develop in individuals who have experienced or witnessed a traumatic event. It is characterized by symptoms such as intrusive thoughts, flashbacks, nightmares, emotional numbness, and hyperarousal. These symptoms can persist for extended periods of time, even after the incident. So common euphemisms are shell shock, combat fatigue, nervous breakdown, battle fatigue, and something I never heard of, soldier's heart. So what I find interesting is that all of those things are synonymous with war, right? Most of them are synonymous with war. And, although I've never experienced, war, I've never had a gun shoot by me, thank God. Never had to experience anything like that before. But, I have experienced PTSD at work, and, I thought that this was a good topic for us to discuss because, I feel like it's not talked about enough. It's not too often where you hear a nurse say, well, maybe these days you will, but, prior to it being accepted,
more people are talking about
nurses really don't talk about their PTSD.
Yeah. More people now have started talking about it, and I'm happy about that. But I think we're still missing a fundamental viewpoint. And I don't know, maybe everybody knew it and I'm just coming to this conclusion myself. So nursing itself can cause PTSD. Can I say that? The job itself.
I think the profession.
The profession
maybe not nursing in particular, but healthcare, I think.
Healthcare.
Working in the healthcare industry.
Working in healthcare. Yeah. I feel like a broken record. You're at people's worst case scenarios. Their most vile, sick moment. And you have that privilege and that horror that you witness. So I'm curious, what made you want to talk about it today? PTSD of all things.
Well, I remember a question my dad asked me because after I worked in an ED for some time, and he was genuinely curious. He was like, because I would come home and I would tell them stories sometimes, or I would just, be on the phone on my lunch break, just talking to my parents, and I would just, tell them stories. And then one day my pops asked me, like, do you guys have PTSD after you've experienced so many traumatic events? And I had never thought about it because I was kind of still fairly new in my career. But, as I've aged in my career, I realized that, there are some instances where will always be forever etched in my brain. I remember vivid experiences, just people just crying out, like just hear the tears of people, the wailing of them losing their loved ones, to see a child, something bad happen to a child, like those things have always been on my brain every now and then. And I just wonder, how many other nurses do experience that? And every nurse that I've personally talked to, they've always said they have at least a couple of stories that they can, shoot off the top of their head verbatim about something that caused them some type of trauma.
We all have it. If nursing is one of those things where you can avoid it, but as long as you're at the bedside, and as long as you're within an acute setting at one point or another, you're going to come across death and dying, not just sick. And the idea of dealing with death and dying is one that profoundly changes you. So, is it PTSD? Is it an adaptation? I don't know what it is. but it never leaves you the same.
Yeah.
And we can use that either to our advantage, or we can allow it to completely consume us and take us down dark roads.
Yeah. And I think that's a fine line, because it can consume you. But at the end of the day, it's part of the job. But I think it's part of the job that's not talked about enough.
Did you know about it when you went to nursing?
Exactly.
You always hear about
really my mistake.
Burnouts and stuff like that, but the why?
Yeah, I know. I can't recall ever hearing about nurses experience PTSD in nursing school. It was just something where I just kind of assumed as I progressed in my career, because I've seen a lot of stuff. And I think a lot of nurses, if you work in ICU, critical care, like anywhere really, but, working in this field, you're going to see some stuff.
Unless you're doing paperwork.
Yeah.
Pure paperwork, you're going to come across.
You're going to see some stuff. You're going to experience someone and have to tell them their family member passed away. Like you're gonna see
they weren't expecting it.
They weren't expecting it, and to me, that's the worst. That's the cries are different.
That's the shriek that never leaves you. That's the deafening sound of tears hitting the floor. That sounds crazy, but it's. To be fair, for my viewers and to you, some of this stuff might be triggering to people. As you can see, myself included.
Yeah.
Especially with whatever's going on in your personal life. And then to have to deal with this level of death and dying, or potential for it, because a lot of it is not like that. Don't be afraid of that. It's not all like that.
Yeah.
But when it is, it changes you, and you need to be ready for that. You need to be aware of that. No amount of money is going to protect you from that.
Yeah.
That's not to scare you. That's just to educate you.
It's real. It's real. I think, when I think of PTSD, there are a couple of things that kind of go on in my brain, but I have like a top three. One where a child died. 2 years old. I've never seen compressions done on a 2-year-old before. So the very first time I saw that, and honestly the only time, because I said to myself, I cannot do peds. I knew that I couldn't be a peds nurse from that experience. Just to do the compressions on a little thing, on a little human, and then for that little human not to make it, and then just to see the mother, mourn over her child.
And
yeah.
Could have been, should have been, must have been.
The child wound up dying of SIDS, and ever since then, like even I had my son after that, but like in the back of my head was, I can't let him pass away. I can't let him pass away because of SIDS. So like I'm really like, oh, that's in my head. My entire time my son was in his crib. For me, said a lot. It said that, peds nursing is not for me, and I'm okay with that. I'm literally okay with that, because children for me are a whole nother, a thing that I just know I personally can't deal with.
What's the other two?
So there was this one time where this father and son were just walking in the street.
A dying child is not bad enough, so I'm asking for more.
Oh no, no, I know where you were going though, because unfortunately this was another child, but this was a father and his child this time. But the father he was literally walking his son I guess they were coming from, the basketball court, whatever. But these guys had an issue with the father. They shot at the father, wound up hitting the son and the father. But the father miraculously lived, but his son didn't. And that was the first time I ever saw, a chest crack open, but it was a kid. It was a 13-year-old kid. Mm-hmm. And, just to see the amount of blood on the floor that day, and like we were just slipping and sliding because there were two traumas going on in the same day. And it was just like, one team was handling the father and the other team was handling the son, but there was just so much blood everywhere. Like the amount of blood to this day, I just never experienced and seen so much blood in one spot.
It's the elevator scene where the doors open in The Shining.
Oh yeah,
the blood pours out.
Yeah.
In your mind, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, I just remember going home and it's like saying to myself, "What the heck is this world? Like, what is this world? Like, you can't even walk your son home, without." Yeah, it was just. And then the last one, I just remember. This one, this was actually a patient of mine, and this patient, the doctor put an order in, to take him off the monitor because he felt like, we can wean him off and try to see how independent he goes and doesn't have to, ask the nurse to take the leads off and all that stuff just to go to the bathroom. So, the doctor put the order, take him off a step down, So, I took him off a step down. I'm doing all this, and it's change of shift, and his family's getting ready to leave. And I say to his son, "Don't worry, he's in good hands," right? Because that was something I always said to my patients. I always, try to evoke that confidence in them. And a couple of hours later, the father died, and I remember his son walking into the room, and then me, after doing post-mortem care. And I had to look at him in the face and say, "I'm sorry." Even though it was nothing that I did, it was just the universe. But it was just I never told anybody else you're in good hands, even though I felt like they were. Like, even if I was just the most confident that day, I never said that ever again to anybody.
I still say it.
Yeah.
I grappled with it. You're in safe hands, you're in good hands.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, it still is better to make them feel good, to lower their anxiety, than to be wrong. And don't deprive yourself of that. Therapists, if I'm not wrong, by all means, my therapists out there, my social workers, my understanding is that, and I could be wrong, that you guys have to talk with another therapist or another social worker or something along that line as a part requirement of your job.
Which makes sense. Yeah.
Correct?
Mm-hmm.
And these are people who are just talking about trauma.
Imagine talking about it and dealing with it and seeing you're seeing everything on firsthand.
You might not be at the incident of the gunshot wound or the stab wound or the MVA or the assault or just the cardiac event, right? But you're there during the CPR, you're there during the OR, you're during their therapists get to talk to other therapists as part of their job. Nurses, we don't. We're highly recommended. The culture, I hate to say it, is still toughen up as part of the job, right? It's still there. That mentality is still there. A lot of people don't think that way anymore, which I'm happy about, but it's still there. But what is not there is the fact that we don't have any type of, built-in mechanism to mitigate this. And it's a known issue. Mm-hmm. It's a known issue.
Yeah.
And in this modern day, we are way too interconnected for us not to realize that PTSD is part of being human. We all go through trauma. Some of us more than others. And if you walk into the nursing field, you're going to see it up front first.
Mm-hmm.
If you go into the healthcare field, depending on where you go, you will see it up front first. And you need to not only become okay with that, but understand how to be okay when you're not. And you will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of people who might see this eventually and go, that's BS. I'm perfectly fine. I've been doing it for 40 years. Talk to your coworkers.
And there might be people that can see these things or experience these things and have no type of feelings for it. I don't understand how, because, you know, you're human. Like if you're a human and you see another human.
I can't imagine that. You really have to be a sociopath. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that either. I think that's also an evolutionary thing that's happening within our society, within our race. So that's a different conversation. Yeah. That's fine. As long as you're still altruistic, that's fine. Good for you. Maybe you don't feel it. Or bad for you because you don't get to feel.
But I guarantee if they really explore the things that they've seen, they'll see that eventually something affected them somewhere. Something made you different. You can't see somebody's skin flopping off of their leg and not have, any issues. Like not to make a joke of this, but I saw this one time and I couldn't eat spaghetti for a good 2 years. No lie, because when the spaghetti falls off the fork. I like spaghetti falling off a fork messed me up. Like, and even though that's something that might seem small and trivial to somebody,
like imagine it reversed.
Like, what if I really liked? You're just messed up, man. You're messed up. You're messed up when you see that.
But you see that protective mechanism you just did, though. You associated it with food because you needed to distance yourself from what you actually saw. You rather see spaghetti and sauce than somebody's internal organs and skin and whatever.
Just fall off. The slough off.
The slough off. Right. I love and hate that word. Terrifies me. Slough off. It's.
I saw a fetus on the floor in the bathroom at work.
Somebody gave birth. In the bathroom?
Yeah.
And they dumped
on the floor. Well, no, I guess it was spontaneous. I don't know. But I walked in the room.
No judgment, whatever.
And she's... No judgment. No judgment at all. I walked in the room and the patient said... Yeah. Like, I literally go into the room and the patient says... There's a bathroom inside that room. And she says, there's something on the floor in the bathroom. I don't know what it is. Can you just go take a look? So I say, okay, sure. I open the door and there's the fetus on the floor.
How far?
Take a deep breath. It was really small. So I don't remember the exact time, but it was small. Okay. Like it was like it could have fit in the palm of my hand, basically. But I saw it on the floor, like just there. And I turned around. I went back to the doctor and I said, I think, she had a spontaneous, I don't know, I forgot the term I used. I was a lot more knowledgeable back then, but I think she aborted, I basically said, and it's on the floor. So, he goes in and he says, yeah, sorry, my son's coming up.
Yep.
That's the baby. And yeah, it was just like those images pop up in my head like sporadically, things that I've seen that I can just remember vividly, and I don't understand how people can see these things and not feel anything. That's why I'm saying, like, yes, there might be some people that can't feel or don't feel anything, but like when you see another human and they're experiencing a very negative human experience, that has to influence you or affect you in some way.
And it does. And I really do think we need to have this become more of a mandatory part of our, and I know mandatory is triggering for people, right? But it has to be within our workflow. It has to be within our, this is the part of that humanity portion that I keep harping about. If we're not happy, healthy human beings, we can't be happy, healthy workers. So for my capitalists, you want a good cohort of healthy, decent people, and the mental stress of everyday life plus healthcare wears them out much quicker. And then you have one trigger moment like COVID, and you have a mass exodus. We don't talk about it, in my opinion. We don't approach it properly. We sprinkle it as if it's an afterthought, as a garnish. We talked about it, we talked about it. Here's some eye care, here's some whatever care. This is some 800 number.
Yeah. And we're not saying that we have the answers, because I don't think we have the answers, but I think that it's important for us to begin to start talking about these things, because you're right. Why are social workers mandated to have that integrated into their workflow, where they have other therapists and they can kind of, release that healthy way? But, nurses are experiencing in them. We're kind of being therapists as well, like not to take away from anything from therapists, but, that's part of our role, is to provide therapy, whether that be physical or emotional, or, that's part of our role. But we don't have that outlet, And some people say, nurses work 13-hour shifts or 12-hour shifts, whatever that may be, 3 days a week, and you can have your other days off. But you really don't have those other days off, especially if
this doesn't turn off.
You don't have it. It does not. Like how? Like I still hear the beeps and the bells and stuff like that. Sometimes, it could be my second day off, and I'm still hearing beeps and bells. I'm like, there's no beep going off. Like there's no bell going off. Like, what's going on?
Oh yeah, I'm not at work. I'm not at work.
Yeah. But there's no outlet at all.
That's alarm fatigue, right? Yeah. We're exposed to these noises. We're exposed to these sights, these sounds, these smells, right? It takes a toll on people. They don't realize it. We don't realize it. We don't acknowledge it. It takes a toll on us.
Yeah.
If you want to torture somebody, put them and expose them to foul smells and loud noises and aggressive human beings, or unsightly views of the death and dying.
There were these two nurses that worked in the emergency room, and a patient essentially took out a knife out of her bag and stabbed two emergency room nurses. So imagine being those nurses, and also imagine being the staff seeing those nurses. Now imagine being the nurses that weren't there during that event, but then had to come to work the next day, right? Mm-hmm. And still have to work and still have to perform. And yes, granted, that's the job, but it's not an easy one. It's not an easy one, knowing that you could possibly get stabbed just by doing your job. Like, you're really being intimate and close up with these patients sometimes. A lot of times.
Not sometimes, a lot of times.
A lot of times, yeah.
That's the job.
It's a dangerous one.
Right.
It's a dangerous job, man.
It's a dangerous job. It's a taxing job. It takes it out on your body. It takes it out on your mind. And both of them can be detrimental if you don't take care of it. I've dealt with it. Some of it has been good for me. Some of it has been horrible for me.
Yeah.
Right? Stress eating is horrible. I hit over 300 pounds at one point. Right?
Yeah.
How do you fix that? Not through diet and exercise, although it is diet and exercise, but it's the mental state of your being first.
Yeah.
Right? If you don't acknowledge the issue first, truly, Have a conversation with yourself in the mirror, kind of conversation. Like, what is it that's really bugging you? If you've never tried it, try it. Have a conversation with yourself in the mirror one time. And ask yourself the hard questions that you're not willing to ask other people about yourself. See what you answer. See what you subconsciously answer. And you'd be surprised. And then ask yourself, why do you think you need to stay this way? And you might surprise yourself when you hear your head say, I don't have to be. Right? PTSD is one of those insidious things that it has a lot of euphemisms for a reason. We can't point to one area that hurts. Is it reproducible? No. Right? That's not PTSD. Right? That's not being shell-shocked. That's not being, I mean, every language that I've ever been exposed to has multiple names for the same thing. Right? Because it's complicated. Because we don't want to talk about it. Because no matter how fluffy we make the sounding name of it, I guarantee you the more modern term for it, the more rooted term, is probably tweezed out to different conditions and whatever, but it's tried to be watered down. No matter how watered down we make of it, the more deeper we get into of what it actually is, all of a sudden we start changing the name again. PTSD is part of life.
Yeah, I think when you say everybody experiences trauma, that's a very accurate statement, and trauma is subjective, and
it becomes a disorder when you can't stop thinking about it. When it becomes intrusive into your life. Right? You and I can have the same experience side by side. I might not end up in the same mental state as you because of my protective barriers that I've created for myself, or outlets that I've created for myself. We both experience the same trauma. The perception of it, the reframing of it, that's what's important. How I choose to interact with that trauma. Okay? And it could be anything. It could be
given
from a
your
patient
history,
to the death of a loved one. It sounds cold, but if you think about it, you have to always reframe it in the grand scheme of things, or in a bigger picture style, whatever that may be for you. That's what I do. Does it work for you? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's nonsense. But you need to find it. How do you do that? Through that conversation.
And you mentioned earlier that, there was different coping mechanisms that you kind of utilized, and some of them were healthy, some of them weren't healthy. And I think that it's very easy, as everyone knows, that you can kind of fall into the unhealthy things
easier.
Rather simply because they're easy. Yeah.
Easier. It's more convenient. It's more available.
Yeah.
Remember, being good, like I tie all this into the same thing because it is the same thing if you fundamentally think about it. Being a good person is difficult to be. Right? You have to make conscious decisions of when somebody annoys the out of you, for you to be able to step back and still smile and still be nice and still be. It takes a lot of energy and fortitude. Right? Being healthy is the exact same thing. It's the exact same mental health, same fortitude, same discipline. When they say happy, healthy, I think it's the same size of the same coin, and I'm just starting to realize that. But it's the same thing. So it's easy. It's so easy for people to turn to multiple different things. Pick your fix. It could be as bad as overeating to drug use and, God forbid, self-harm or harm to others because you can't cope with the anger that lives within you. Personal story. This is what happens when you allow people who are uneducated to proceed and take over. Currently, right now, my father-in-law is in a coma because the initial physician that did the CAT scan for this gentleman after he had a traumatic fall told him that he was okay to go home without a repeat CAT scan. I fear for the nurses and the doctors there that have to tell my wife and her family the moment that he passes. And I really hope that I'm wrong. I really hope that I'm wrong. Those are the wails that you never forget.
Yeah, you never forget that. And that's why you can't get into this field and expect to not feel, because you're really handling people. You're handling humans, and then you're handling their family members.
You're handling life.
You're handling life.
You're handling life force. If you're religious, you're handling the soul. You're not handling meat.
Which is why it should be handled with care. Why you shouldn't feel rushed. Why you shouldn't feel unsafe. like you need to feel like a human taking care of other humans going to work, and not feel unsafe, not have to worry about, yes, I might have experienced PTSD from a situation, but maybe I know that I'm going to have the help that I require.
I get to talk about it. I get to relive my experience with somebody and relive it in a non-traumatic way, to be able to recreate feelings of calmness, to supersede that anxiety, to supersede that anger. It doesn't mean it doesn't pop up once in a while.
Yeah.
But that's how you mitigate it. That's how you reframe it. You have that outlet, right? If you have that outlet, then that PTSD becomes a learning experience, becomes a challenging workplace, becomes something that you overcame, still traumatized you, still hurt you, still left its scars. But now you know something and you've grown from it.
So, you know that we have to cope because, you know, we can't escape it. And we talked about some of how you can essentially cope with some unhealthy habits. But how do we build resilience, I guess, in this atmosphere that we live in, this work chaos that we live in? You know, yes, we have some great moments as well. I don't want to, minimize those, but, you do require some resilience in this environment. And I guess my question would be, like, how do we build resilience?
Through what we're doing right now. Through a conversation, through normalization, to having a conversation again. And this isn't meant just for healthcare workers. This is a society thing. This needs to be a social, collective consciousness kind of thing. As the human race, all right, too big, too ambitious, let's work closer. The country, the state, the city, the workplace workflow culture, my interaction with my 10, 7, 14 patients, right? It doesn't have to be on a global scale. But it could be through Better Nurse Corp.
To piggyback off that, I essentially think that, like, I like your idea that, we should kind of have it incorporated into the nursing workflow to talk to a therapist every so often, whatever that frequency, might be. But I do think that it's important to acknowledge the PTSD that you experienced, that we have experienced, and to acknowledge that we will experience more just given the industry. But what are we doing about it? And, I know that there are some organizations that do have, I guess, options where, you can go and talk to a therapist. But I would like to see more of that. I would like to see, like you said, more nurses being involved with that, because these things will weigh on you after a while, especially if you see enough of it. Like, you see enough death, it's going to weigh on you.
And you will be surprised when it rears its head. You could be doing the most mundane thing and something triggers you. Or it could be a life traumatic thing and it can trigger you. It could be a death of a loved one and it can trigger you. It could be, you don't know until that truck has already plowed over you. And that's not too late, but that's a lot more difficult and painful to come back from.
For me, I have to remind myself to stop being so hard on myself, to allow myself to be human.
To feel.
I do think that it's important to be tough, important to, put up, a tough exterior to the world. But I think there are also times when, you need to put that down and turn that tough exterior down and realize that you're a human, you're a spiritual being in a human body, and that's not easy, and give myself credit for that. Like you mentioned, looking at yourself in the mirror and asking yourself tough questions. And I think that's important because, I find that a lot of times with dealing with my kids, they don't want to deal with the hard stuff. And, as an adult, you realize you kind of have to deal with the hard stuff eventually. You can't escape
that's the
it.
Part about
and that's
being
part
adult.
of it. Part of dealing with life is PTSD. Huh?
That's the part about being an
What'd you say?
adult that they don't tell you about.
Yeah. Yeah. And,
congratulations, you grew up.
Right?
Right? Surprise,
Right.
Nobody told you that the difference between you being a child and you being an adult is that tolerance level.
Yeah, exactly.
And
how are you dealing with the nonsense, the everyday craziness? Are you going to crumble, or are you going to, rise to the occasion? I think knowing yourself is part of that journey. Knowing yourself is part of the resilience journey.
Not to get over the top about this, we as a society of humans around the world are now too integrated with each other for us to not understand that stressors of life, PTSD, will affect people around the world, even if the trauma is clearly across the world. Right? We have way too much interconnectedness. We're being bombarded with news of atrocities left and right. Personal atrocities, as if you're there, right? FaceTime, as if you're there, right? It's clear across the world, and it affects us. And we have to understand this. As a global society, as a global species, and that's what we are now. We are a global species in the sense that our ability to interact with each other is immediate at this point. It's not like, it takes time for me to get to you. I can be there within hours. I can be there within minutes. I can be there instantly now with technology, right? If we don't take this into account of the bigger picture within healthcare, within our profession, these stressors of life will add up. And if you don't have an outlet, it will paralyze you.
Simply because you're human.
Simply because you're human. Because some things you're not really meant to see or experience.
All the time. Yeah, every day, right?
Or repeatedly, right? Once in a blue moon, okay.
Yeah, Yeah.
This is a repeat offender.
end us out on a light note. I know you want to always put us on a positive note. So yeah, give
This
us.
one's a little bit difficult for me. I'm not gonna lie. With everything that's going on, the dark cloud is always there. Now, the moral of the story is this: I have faith in our ability, and after seeing and learning about game theory and reading about it and seeing these themes come across through these psychological books, even money books, I'm seeing these themes across the board. That good will prevail, as corny as that sounds. It's just a matter of how fast we want it to get there. And that's the ripple effect that I hope we create, that we need to start building this community. I need you guys to start sharing this with people. I need you guys to start subscribing. A lot of you are viewing it but not subscribing. So please subscribe, share, comment. It needs to get into the algorithm, right? So it can allow us to do other things that we have planned for you, right? First 1,000 subscribers get it for free. So we need all this. We need all this because we need to get the word out and we need to create the community. And I'm just tired of waiting for others to do it. So I think we need to create it for ourselves and we need to do it.
Better Nurse Corp. Till next time.
Till next.